Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel Ekraft Geeks. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the topic bearings. The following contents we are going to be doing in today's video are introduction, classification, selection of bearing type, the types, and function with applications. So let us begin with introduction. A bearing is a device to permit constrained relative motion between two parts, typically rotation or linear movements. When there is relative motion between two machine parts, one of which supports the others, the supporting member is called bearing. Classification. Bearings are classified depending upon the load and also depending upon the type of contact. There are two types of classification. One is sliding contact bearing and anti-friction bearing. Sliding contact bearing has two types, that are journal bearing and plain bearing, and anti-friction bearing also has two types, which is ball bearing and roller bearing. Now let us know about the selection of a bearing type. Each bearing type displays characteristic properties based on its design, which makes it more or less appropriate for a given application. The most important factors to be considered when selecting a standard bearing type and thus to facilitate an appropriate choices are available space, loads, misalignment, precision, speed, quiet running, stiffness, integral seals, axial displacement, and mounting and dismounting. Types of bearings. There are 6 types of bearings. One is ball bearing, angular contact ball, roller bearing, thrust bearing, journal bearing, and plain bearing. In terms of ball bearing is a common type of rolling element bearing which are used for point contact and to support radial and axial loads. The types of ball bearings are single row deep groove and double row deep groove ball bearing. Coming to the next point, that is angular contact ball bearing, these ball bearings are designed for axial loading and are used where the thrust load is equal or greater than radial load. The types of angular contact ball bearing are single row angular contact bearing and double row angular contact bearing. The third type of bearing is the roller bearing, which is used in rotary applications and are used to replace sliding movements with low friction rolling motion. The types are cylindrical, tapered, spherical, and needle roller bearing. And the next type is a thrust bearing, which is designed for pure axial loading that comprises a row of balls running between two flat groove washers. Again, there are two types of bearing, that are single row thrust bearing and double row thrust bearing in thrust bearing. And the last type of bearing is a journal bearing, which is a simple bearing with a layer in which a shaft or journal rotates in the bearing with a layer of oil or grease separating the two parts through fluid dynamic effects. And the types are solid and ring oil journal bearing. Hence, after knowing what is a bearing and its classification, its selection of bearing type and its types, let us now know its function. A good bearing is expected to do three of the following important functions. First, bearing should ensure free rotation with minimum friction and should also support rotating parts and maintain them in a correct position, with which it should also transmit the forces acting on rotating parts to the frame of the machine. Applications. Bearings are widely used in automotive industry, office equipment, and paper making machines. In terms of automotive industry, all motor vehicles use bearings for essential parts such as engine, steering, drive shaft, and drive line. In terms of office equipment, bearings are used in standard office equipment such as photocopiers, fax machine, and printers. And in terms of paper making machines, they have been used for a number of years as they play an integral role in boosting productivity and enhancing the reliability of paper making machines to ensure that any downtime is reduced. And that was the end of the video bearings. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to Ekraft Geeks. Thank you so much and see you next time.